morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you all for joining this call. My name is Sam Fanshawe. For those of you who I haven't met, now you know what I look like. And I'm going to spend the next 45-50 minutes giving you an overview of the Namib race, of everything you need to arrive prepared, including covering lots of details on the course, and then give a opportunity at the end for you to ask me your questions or other people on the call. We also have the course director, Thomas Bon, on the call, who has been to Namib and managed the course a few times, so he will also be able to help answer your questions. So here's what I'm going to cover today. So a brief introduction. I think most of you know what the Namib race is. Going to go over the race itinerary and logistics, the format of the Namib race, both pre-itinerary and a daily summary. I'm going to look at the course stage by stage. I'll talk about weather and overall course conditions, summary of the equipment. I'm going to go over some of the frequently asked questions. I will briefly share with you a little bit about a charity and how we can help those in Namibia for those who want to, and then open up to a question and answer at the end. So we're now 3 months, just over 3 months until we all arrive in Swakopmund for the Namib Race 2024, and we're very much looking forward to meeting you all there. Hopefully you know that it's a 250-kilometer or 155-mile, 6-stage, 7-day self-supported ultramarathon. The Namib Race 2024 is the 74th RacingThePlanet ultramarathon. It's the 6th edition of the Namib race, which took over from what was the Sahara race previously held in Egypt. The first race was in 2016, and we had a new course in 2021, and this is the 3rd year on this current course. The Namib race is part of the 4 Deserts race series, which includes the Gobi March in Mongolia, the Atacama Crossing in Chile, and the Last Desert in Antarctica. And it's a qualifying race for the Last Desert in Antarctica for those who are already set to do it or thinking about doing it. The race, it's self-supported, but it's fully supported by an international and local team of management, a medical team, course team, a great team of volunteers, and a talented media team. So when does it start? So the meeting place is in Swakopmund, which is on the coast of Namibia. You need to arrive in Swakopmund by Friday, the 26th of April, and you can arrive at any time. The meeting place is the Swakopmund Hotel and Entertainment Centre, and we provide the hotel accommodation for Friday night. So all you need to do is arrive, check in, get settled in, and be ready for our first official meeting that's on Saturday, the 27th of April at 10 o'clock at the Swakopmund Hotel. So Swakopmund Hotel and Entertainment Centre in Swakopmund on the 26th of April is where you need to meet, and you can check in from 2 p.m. First official meeting, so the first time I will officially meet you all is on Saturday, the 27th of April at 10 a.m. So getting to Swakopmund and notes for travel. So I think many of you have already booked your flights, but just to go over it, and for those who haven't, so there's 2 main airports that you can fly into in Namibia. The most common route is to fly into Walvis Bay, which is the closest airport to Swakopmund, which is about 40 minutes away by road transfer. And the most common route to get there is to fly first into South Africa, so either to Cape Town or Johannesburg, and then take a regional flight of about 2 hours to Walvis Bay, and there's 1 a day from each Cape Town and Johannesburg into Walvis Bay. You can also fly into Windhoek, which is the capital of Namibia. It's about 4+ hours drive away from Swakopmund. There is a flight from Windhoek to Walvis Bay for those who have booked it, but it only goes 4 days a week, so not on Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Saturdays. And there's only 1 each way on those days. The other alternative is you can take a road transfer, which is quite long, but is quite comfortable on a reasonable road from Windhoek to Swakopmund. Entry into Namibia is straightforward. They don't have any special requirements. Most nationalities don't need a visa, and that certainly applies for USA, the EU, the UK, Japan, and a number of other countries. Some Asian countries, some South American, and some Eastern European countries and others do need a visa. So if you're unsure, just double check, or you can check with me. And if you need an invitation letter, I can provide one from Racing the Planet. I can also provide one from our local partners in Namibia. Transfers into Swakopmund. So said from Walvish Bay, it's about 40 minutes and costs about $20 US. From Windhoek, if you choose to go by road, it's 4 to 5 hours. You can either take a public transfer, and there's one each day that goes from Windhoek to Swakop, and one each day that goes from Swakopmund to Windhoek. And that goes, so your flight needs to arrive into Windhoek before 11 a.m. or leave after 2 p.m. for you to be able to take the public one. Or you can take a private transfer, which will be for you to meet your flight, and that's $270 each way. If you want to share that with other people, you can either arrange with the people that you know, other racers, or you can let the transfer company know that you are interested in sharing, and they will pair you up with anybody else that's interested in sharing if there's people who arrive at a similar time. All these details are in the essential race information, plus a little bit more, but these are the highlights of them, the most important part. And for either of these transfers, you do need to book it in advance. At Walvish Bay Airport, they don't have taxis that are just waiting there. And from Windhoek, it's quite a long way. So to arrange a car or find someone who's willing to take you all the way to Swakopmund might take a bit of time and effort. So book them in advance, and our recommended company is Welwitschia, and the details are here on the screen, and you can also see them in the essential race information. A key tip for travel: carry as much race equipment as possible in your hand carry. It's not uncommon for bags to be lost or delayed by airlines, and in particular for the shorter flights. So if you were going to fly from Windhoek to Walvish Bay, and even the ones from South Africa to Walvish Bay, they're smaller flights. So if there's a lot of luggage, they tend to, it's quite normal that they leave it behind and bring it later, which is not ideal if you are arriving just before the race. So just to save any stress or hassle, carry as much of your race equipment with you on the plane, wear your trainers, carry your race backpack. Obviously your multi-tool needs to go into check-in, but we can find a replacement for you in Swakopmund if need be. And just a suggestion, bring powders and food in their original packaging. And if you're planning on transferring them into different packaging, do it once you arrive into Namibia. And quick point on insurance. So we require you to have a medical and evacuation insurance that covers you for doing a 250-kilometer ultramarathon. And we recommend that you also have general travel insurance either included in that or in addition that covers for things like flight delays and lost luggage and anything else standard as if you were going and traveling overseas. A little bit about Swakopmund. One second. So Swakopmund is a desert coastal town. It's a desert coastal holiday town. So it's quite a fun place. It's a population of about 45,000. I put on here on the left here a map so you've got an idea. So the central main part of Swakopmund is about 7 kilometers long and about 2 kilometers wide, but the greater Swakopmund goes into a much bigger area. It's a wide open town. You can see down here with big wide streets. It's very clean and has a German influence. It has nice restaurants and cafes. It has good supermarkets. It has many ATMs if you wanted to take cash out. Most places accept credit cards. You may want to bring a small amount of cash for paying for little things. And just an idea, so $1 US is 19 Namib dollars at the moment, but currently the currency is very much in US and Europeans' favor, but there's an approximate translation. South African rand is also commonly accepted in Namibia. And one little note on that is that it's very difficult to change Namib dollars back to any other currency, so back to US dollars or euros or anything else. So if you're left at the end of the race with any local cash, try to make sure it's the rand rather than the dollars. Sorry, rather than the Namib dollars. There are some sports and outdoor shops, but they don't have race-specific gear. So really do carry your equipment and arrive with as much of it as possible. So the race itinerary. So here is the itinerary that you will have seen on the website. It is as it says there, but just to clarify, and the key points. So the meeting place is Swakopmund, 26th of April. We provide hotel accommodation that night at the Swakopmund Hotel and Entertainment Centre. Saturday is a pre-race briefing, the race check-in, and on the Saturday we travel to Camp 1. You can leave one bag that you don't want to have with you on the race with us at the hotel in Swakopmund, and we will store it for you for the week. And Saturday night is the first night that you'll spend in your tents. You'll need to bring a meal for that night, whether it's a freeze-dried meal or something fresh from Swakopmund. And then on Sunday, the 28th of April, the race starts. One quick note on that, so volunteers arrive one day earlier, so the staff and volunteers need to arrive on Thursday, the 25th of April, and they're staying in a slightly different hotel close by. After the race, the hotel is provided again at the same hotel on Saturday, the 4th of May, and we'll have the awards banquet at that hotel that evening. And then on Sunday, breakfast will be provided at the hotel, and then all race activities and event activities come to an end. So you've got the summary here, a bit more detail about Saturday, a few more notes on there. So on Saturday, the 27th of April, breakfast is provided at the hotel. The checkout time is 10 a.m. and the briefing is planned for 10 a.m. So I request you to check out from your rooms before you come to the briefing. Leave one bag at reception for storage, and you will have time to get your lunch before we board the buses at around 2 or 3 p.m. And we'll arrive at camp later in the afternoon. Sunday, so after your first night under the stars, there's hot water provided for preparing your breakfast from 5:30 a.m. and the race starts at 8 a.m. So the race format. So the course is marked entirely with pink flags. So you can see here the pink flags that it is marked with, and they are always in line of sight. Flags, tape, sometimes it will be spray paint in the odd place, but mainly it'll be flags and tape. And it will always be line of sight, so you don't need any navigational skills. There's a checkpoint along the course about every 10 kilometers or 6 miles. At that checkpoint, there's water where you will top up, and you will leave every checkpoint with 1.5 liters of water. There's a medical doctor at each of the checkpoints in case you want to ask questions or want help with any issues. There's volunteers who will cheer you on and help fill your bottles. There's shade. There's a vehicle for our purposes, not for yours. So each stage has generally 4 checkpoints, but sometimes 5, except the long march, which is the same setup, same format, but has more checkpoints because it's a longer distance. The final checkpoint of each day is at camp, and that marks the end of your stage, and that's where the timing stops. So a bit more detail on the water. So I said you have to have the capacity to carry 2.5 liters of water. However, for most days and most sections, you will have to leave the checkpoint with 1.5 liters of water. Regardless of how much you arrive with, you have to leave with a minimum of 1.5 liters of water. There are some sections where we may allow you or may require you to take additional water, and hence the requirement to have another liter carrying capacity as a bottle to fill with that extra water. Your allocation when you arrive at camp is 4.5 liters of water, and that's to last you for that night or the rest of the afternoon, that night, the next morning, and to the first checkpoint the next day. The water is provided at a central point in camp, and it comes in large 5 litre bottles. And so you do need to have your own containers to pour it into. And also at camp, and at camp only, except on the long march, hot water is provided for preparing your meals. So there's no hot water at checkpoints, only at camp, except one designated checkpoint on the long march. A scoring, so your time starts when your stage starts, and it finishes when you reach camp, and each person's time finishes as they reach camp. All you have to do is make sure that the checkpoint has seen you and mark down your bib number and your time, and the scoring works from there. And then very important for some, so cut-off time. So let's start the other way around. So the front people are generally very fast and will finish a 40-kilometer or 25-mile stage in certainly under 4 hours, sometimes closer to 3. The people towards the back of the pack, it is possible to walk the entire course and still finish the race. So there is a cut-off time at every checkpoint, and you must meet this. And this is based on a 4-kilometer or 2.5 mile per hour walking speed. So if you can finish a 40-kilometer or 25-mile stage in about 10 hours, then you're going to be well ahead of the cut-off times. Just a quick note on that is that that doesn't include extra times for having breaks. So if you're at a checkpoint and you're just filling up, taking 5 minutes, you need to factor that in. Or if you want to take a longer break, you need to keep an eye on the cutoff times. Daily schedule for everyone. So this is the plan, and this is how it normally works, but things can always change. So each morning we'll have a race briefing at 7:30, which I will be giving on my microphone, on my megaphone. And that's just generally giving you a bit of extra information about the course. You'll be given a book with the course notes in at race check-in in Swakopmund. So you'll have the details of the distances and the elevation and a little description of each one. But I will let you know of any changes and just remind you of that first thing in the morning. The race starts at 8 a.m. and everyone starts together, unless I tell you otherwise, and occasionally we might have a staggered start or similar. Your job is to follow the flags, and they're in line of sight, and be sure to follow them. If you don't see a flag for a while, go back, check, look around, you probably missed it. If there was really a problem with the flags, we ask you to wait at the last flag that you saw, because we will be aware if people aren't coming through when they should be coming through, and we'll come out to find you. It's very rare, but sometimes the wind blows them down, and so they're more difficult to see. When you arrive at the final checkpoint, which is at camp, your time stops, and then you have time to rest, relax, and eat before you do it all again the next day and the next day. For the long march, which at the namibrace is on stage 5, it's the same format, but there's more checkpoints because they're still every 10 kilometers or 6 miles, but it's a longer distance, you have more of them. There's one designated overnight checkpoint, which is just over halfway, where you can get hot water if you want to prepare a hot meal. And there'll also be extra tents where you can have a rest if you want. In terms of the cutoff time, so at that overnight checkpoint, an additional 3 hours is added to the cutoff time to allow those towards the back to be moving at the same speed, but still have a chance for a good rest there. Obviously, if you arrive well before the cutoff time, then you can have more than 3 hours rest before you have to move on. So the camps, and here you have a photo of one of the camps. This is actually camp 3 before the start, so the end of stage 2. You have tents, cold water, so 4.5 litre allocation of cold drinking water. Hot water is provided from the fire pit. There are fire pits around in the mornings and the evenings for warmth. There's no charging. There are portaloos, and when you're at camp, you must use the toilets provided. There's no showers, but there is a medical tent where the doctors are, where they will help you look at any blisters or any other problems you might have. And there is a cyber tent that I'll talk a little bit more about later on. Hot water, so I'll come through some of these points again. So hot water available from about 5:30 in the morning until about until the race starts, until about 7:30 a.m. And then in the evening, from evening from around 2 p.m. until 8 or 9 p.m. until the last people have headed to bed. Cold water is from 5-litre containers. Toilets must be used. You can see the toilets, to give you an idea, they're very distant, but those are the portaloos there that we have. The cyber tent itself is open from 3 till 8. I'll talk a little bit more. And then there are also bins where you can put your rubbish and your trash, both at all checkpoints and at camp. So just a bit about the tents themselves. So these are the tents that we provide. They say they're 10-person tent. We tend to put 6 to 8 people in. We will pre-assign your tent mates. If you have someone that you want to share with, people that you know, you can let me know and I will accommodate that. Otherwise, I'll put you in a good mixed tent where you have I hope that you'll find some good friends in the desert. So that gives you an idea of what they look like, the tents. There is the option where if you want to have your own tent, you can bring your own single tent. It's not one, but you have to bring your own tent. We will carry it for you from camp to camp. However, you will have to put it up and take it down. We can, our team there can help you put it up and take it down, but they're not experts in all outdoor gear. So that they don't break it or they don't do it incorrectly, if you do want help, you need to ask us and we will find someone to help you put it up. But be prepared if you want to bring your own tent. There's pros and cons of it, but you will have to bring it with you to Namibia and then put it up and take it down, but we will carry it for you. Generally, about 10 people or less than 10% of people at each of the races where we've had this option have bought their own tent. And more than half of them have been very happy they did. And then less than half of them have decided halfway through that they'd prefer to be in a shared tent. There is also the option, if you want to take the opportunity to see a little bit more of the African skies, to sleep outside. If you are in a shared tent, you can sleep outside any night that you want. We just ask that you sleep inside the compound, and then obviously you can always go back into your tent for other nights or for parts of the nights. If you are convinced you want to sleep outside the whole time, then this is the kind of setup you'll have, which is a checkpoint tent. This has actually been lowered down because it was quite windy at that campsite, and literally it'll be this and a ground sheet. The cyber tent, the media and the race coverage, just quickly. So again, this is all in the essential race info, but I want to put as much info out or much summary points out here as I can whilst you're on the call. So the cyber tent is at each checkpoint. Sometimes it's an enclosed tent, depending on the weather, or sometimes we open up the sides and so you're just in the shade in a canopy like that. It's where you can read messages that are sent to you through the Racing the Planet website from your friends and family. You can also see the results from that day and cumulative up to that point. And you can, if you want to send emails home, short messages home, or if you want to write a blog, you can do that, but you need to purchase a cyber tent package if you want to do that. An important note for the cyber tent, so everything is offline. So it's an opportunity for you to get some support and some messages and some positivity from the outside world and some news, but not to take away from your digital detox race experience. So you won't be going in there and looking at your work emails or browsing the internet. It's all offline, and we will download the spreadsheet of emails sent to you that earlier in the day, so normally late in the morning, and we will send out any messages you send in the evening. For your friends and family at home, if how they can send you messages and if they want to follow you during the race, the website is updated daily with results, photos, videos, any blogs that are written, and a short stage summary. There's also breaking news, so it's about 4 or 5 updates we send out during the race each day. The race has started, so-and-so's in the lead, a quote from someone, what the weather's like, who's finished, then who else has finished as people are finishing. They can either check the results or see the breaking news. and they can actually register to receive that to their email, or they can just go and look at it on the website. And finally, for the media, so we have Tiago is our photographer, who some of you will have met before, and Andre from Brazil is our videographer, and they will be taking the photos and videos for the website, and they will also be offering the option of a personalized photo or video package if you want to have something afterwards, so you don't have to take out your camera so much as a memory from the race. There's more information on the website and in the Essential Race Info, but basically it leaves you with a photo package of at least 10 photos of yourself, normally many more, and then about 500 as an overview from the race taken by a professional photographer. And the video package is guaranteed 3 minutes video with at least 4 or 5 interviews with you, either on the course or before, after each stage, and then a general summary of the race, so you get some of the overall footage there as well. Okay, on to the exciting part, so on to the course. So it's taking part in the Namib Desert across a couple of national parks, which are all just along the Skeleton Coast, the southern part of the Skeleton Coast in Namibia. The Namib Desert being the oldest desert in the world. So this information here, so it is on the website. Actually, I've made some slight changes to the distances, but they're more or less the same. I think on the website they're generic, and these are the actual ones planned. Please note as you look through this that things can always change, both in advance of the race and during the race. So whilst this is the course that is set, that is there, that is ready for you, always allow for changes to happen. So it's more or less as advertised. The first 4 stages are about 40 kilometers or 25 miles, more or less. The long march is just under 80 kilometers or 50 miles. And then there's a final run into Swakopmund on the last day. The long march obviously takes place over 2 days. So the people who finish it fast may be finished in 1 day or at sunset, or certainly before midnight. And the slower people will have until at least 10, if not midday the next day to finish it. So well over 24 hours. Okay, so then I also have on here the elevation chart. So again, this is the elevation chart from the website. I'm going to show you the charts for each stage in a moment. Note that this is 250 kilometers that's been squashed into 1 page. So some of the climbs look more or less than they are. The key thing to note here is that the highest point is less than 700 meters, actually closer to 600 meters, which is under 2,000 feet. So even though it looks like there's lots of up and down, and there is a reasonable amount of up and down, you're always staying at a low altitude, so you're never actually going up very high. The total elevation gain is under 2,500 meters. That's under 8,000 feet, and the total elevation loss is just over 2,000 meters, just under 7,000 feet. Before I go on to the stage by stage, just a quick thing to note here. So the stage with the most elevation gain is actually the long march, but it's spread over a lot longer period. So you're not, it all has the highest point on the course is on the long march, just, but it's not, there's no really steep climbs. There is a steep descent, but you'll see in a moment. And then the stage that has the most sort of up and down, I think you'll feel the climbing most, is on stage 4. The other stages, as you can see, is relatively minimal. So over a 40 kilometer, 25 mile stretch, you're talking about 350 odd meters, about 1,000 feet of elevation gain. So stage 1 is salt pans. You're along or close to a beach at one point, and then in a very sandy, dry riverbed. The whole of the Namib race has a lot of sand, every kind of sand that you can possibly imagine, from very soft, deep sand to sand dunes to hard packed sand, like sand that feels more like it's on a track or a trail. And I do highly recommend you bring gaiters. So even when it's not soft sand, it can be quite dusty sand along there. So you see the theme here. So stage 2 is sand dunes with some desert tracks as well. Stage 3, you're coming out of the dunes, so less of the dunes, but you start in them onto an old road. So you're actually on a very hard packed surface for a while, and then you go into the paradise of Moon Valley. Stage 4 is primarily in a riverbed, very, very varied, and you've got rock, it's rocky, sandy, and hopefully it'll be full of interesting animals like ostrich, possibly zebra, hyena and jackals and the like, which are non-dangerous but very interesting to see. Stage 5 is, there's one big climb in the middle, otherwise it's dusty, rocky, wide open desert and some old roads. And then stage 6 is a short run into Swakopmund. So each one in more detail. So here's stage 1. So you're starting only just above sea level. And actually you can see out here, here's the start in the salt pans, where you can see you're running on a sort of track in between the salt pans, and it's quite hard packed. It can be a little slippery. And because you're close to the coast and you're there early in the morning, it can be quite misty at the start there. It looks like you have a big climb here, but just to note, this high point is 100 meters, and you're going along, you're climbing for about 20 kilometers, so 100 meters over 20 kilometers. It's slowly uphill, but it's definitely not uphill as some of you will know it. You then go into this sort of dry riverbed. It starts off quite highly vegetated, and that terrain can be quite difficult. It can be a bit muddy or boggy in there. And then you come into this dry riverbed, which can be very, very sandy. You can see there's dunes around you, but you're not actually in the dunes, but it is still quite sandy. Stage 2, into the dunes. So I would say this is probably the most challenging of the stages. This big climb that you can see here is this dune, and you can see over here on the right the dune that one of the dunes that you're climbing up here. So it is quite challenging. You're on a ridge line, so you're not going up a soft side, but you will be going up a soft side in some places, and you can see the footing here. You start off not in the dunes, but it's still a little sandy. Then you go beside the dunes where you can see them, and then you start heading up into the dunes, and you're heading in here. Again, notes on that elevation chart, because you can't necessarily see it completely clearly. So it starts up at 80 meters, and you're going up. It looks like you're going down, but with some bits of up. But yeah, the overall elevation gain and loss really is very low. But the big thing to note is this, where you're going up some big sand dunes. And then this finally is Camp 3, which is at the end of stage 2. Stage 3 is, if the weather is nice to us, this is where you get a chance to have a little bit of a rest. So again, it is a lot of uphill, but that high point is 350 meters. So what's that? Like just over 1,000 feet, maybe 1,500 feet. And a lot of it, so after the first checkpoint, so after this point where you are climbing up to the top, is a lot of this kind of wide open desert track, and then a little bit of an old road. So for those who are running, you will hopefully get to stretch out your legs and get a little bit more traction and time on there. And here, this is where you cross into the Dorob National Park. This is where you reach this high, this photo in the bottom right-hand corner is where you reach this high point, and then you go down into Moon Valley, which is really beautiful, but it is a little more technical. And you can see, I mean, not a steep downhill, but it is steeper downhill than you've been coming up. Stage 4. So I'm breaking this into a couple of slides because it is quite different. So it starts with a big climb up. So this is Camp 4, which is where you will sleep the night before stage 4. And you can see, hopefully you can see my cursor here, but you're going under the finish line banner, and you are basically going up this route here and up around to the top. And this is looking as people are coming towards a checkpoint coming up the hill. And this is as they're reaching the checkpoint. So it's a little technical, but very beautiful with amazing views at the top. You then go back down, slightly easier terrain, but also it's quite a steep downhill there. And so this is the stage that, whilst it's not the most overall, most elevation gain of a stage, it's the one you'll feel like you're going up and down most. So then you've got this section in the middle, which has quite a lot of ups and downs. You'll start on this kind of terrain in the far left. It looks like you're running along a ridge line, but actually you're not. It's not steep drops there. It's actually quite fun, and that's hard packed there. And you're up and down that bit. Then here's where you're coming up an easier trail. On the sort of road track that you'll be on, you'll see these plants, which are the Welwitschia plants. They're quite ugly, but they are one of the oldest plants in the world. Some of them date back over, I believe it's over 1,000 years in age. And then you are coming into a dry riverbed for the last section here, where you're going slowly uphill. But as you can see from here, it is uphill, but it's not a very steep uphill. There's a little blip before you get to that part, and this is the climb here. So it's a short, sharp, rocky uphill there. So that the high point of this is 250 meters, and you're going up about 50 meters over about half a kilometer. So it's quite a short, sharp, steep climb, but only 50 meters. What's that, about 150 feet? And said, here's more pictures of this last section here. So sometimes you're on a very dusty track in the riverbed, and then sometimes you're in a very wide open riverbed, which is sandy, but not very soft. Now we move on to stage 5. So here, again, I've broken it down into a few parts. So this does have the most elevation gain of 838 meters, 2,700 feet, but it looks like less because it's stretched over a lot longer period. So you start, and there's a bit of an uphill going through the riverbed, and you go, sometimes the riverbed gets narrower, as you can see here, and then as you get up here to the top where it flattens out, it's where you are coming out onto the plain. When you're up on the plain, up on the plateau, so this is where you come out onto it, and then you're on some sort of flat out running. You can see some of it is slightly uphill, which will be that little bit here, and then most of it is relatively flat. It can be quite windy up there because it's very exposed. So as it opens up in the riverbed, you have less rocks around you to protect from the wind if it's a windy day. Then this is Rossing Mountain, that those of you from hilly countries will laugh at. It's not the highest point in Namibia, but it's the highest point on the course, which is at 600 meters. So that's about 2,000 feet. And this is the climb coming up to it. So you can see there are other mountains in the background. Here is the mountain you're going up, not to the very top, but to the saddle where you can see my cursor here. And it's a tiring climb up, but it's not very, it's not a huge climb. It is from about 400 meters up to 600 meters, it's just under a 200 meter climb. So just under 700 feet climb. And as you can see, you are going up a track to it, and that's the sign for the checkpoint. When you get to the top, this is the start of the downhill. So you start down this sort of sandy dune area, and then it does get a little more technical at the bottom. And here, you wouldn't know, but that is actually one of our crew, one of our volunteers, who is there to, in case you need help going down those rocks. But that obviously is not a running section. That's probably the most technical section on the course, and it's just a very short part. And finally, for the last, what is that, about 50, for about last 40 kilometers, it's generally downhill, flattish. So this is that was Rossing Mountain behind, and they've come off the mountain. You're on this track, then you're on various types of tracks and trails after that. So we tried to keep the end of the long march more simpler in terrain, because you're tireder or more tired, and some of you will be doing that during the night. So we like to keep it simple. And looking at the summary of the terrain, so about 35% is quite soft sand. Some dunes, some, just as you can see, some of the tracks are quite soft sand. It does also depend on what time of the day you're on those sections, because in the morning it's harder packed on soft sand than it is in the evening, because it's, sorry, in the afternoon, because it hasn't had a chance to heat up and spread out. About 40% of it is in riverbeds of various different descriptions, which are mainly sandy, but a mix of soft and hard sand, not all sand. And then about 25% is hard packed rocky tracks. So at this point, I just want to introduce you properly to Thomas. Thomas, if you can just unmute yourself and say hello.
Hi, hello, I'm Thomas. So, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. So, yeah, my name is Thomas. Nice to meet you all, and looking forward to meeting you in Namibia. I'll be the course director this year, and I'm German, live in Austria. I've been the course director to quite a few races, and I think, Sam, if I'm right, 3 or 4 times in Namibia. So I can assure you it's a very beautiful country and a very beautiful course. That's why I'm coming back. And the kids you hear in the background are my kids. Sorry for that.
Excellent. So I should really have let Thomas do the introduction of the course, but as it's so fresh in my mind, I wanted to do it. But he's on the call, so if you want to ask him questions at the end, you can as well. And then you will meet Thomas in Namibia also. Okay, the weather. This is what I least like talking about, because these days you never know. But April is autumn or fall in Namibia. So it's cooling down a bit. It's very hot. It's been very hot this summer in Namibia. Those from Namibia on the call, I can see some of you, I think you can vouch for that. However, by the end of April, it will be cooling down, but it will still be warm/hot. The rainy season there is mainly November to April, and most common January, February, March. They haven't, as I understand it, had that much rain recently, but we will see as we get to the end of March, because that will affect what the climate is and what the terrain is like in some of the dry riverbeds. The dry riverbeds that you're in have flown as full-on rivers at one point or another, but it's not an annual occurrence. And in the non-rainy season, they're completely dry and cracked, but that will affect the terrain that you're on. It can be very windy. What I'm hoping we'll avoid is an east wind, which is a wind that comes from the inside. So it's much, much hotter than any normal wind. We have had it before, and we did have it in 2022, although that year the race was held in November. And I very much hope we won't have it this year, but we won't know until closer to the time. I will say also that the reason I put the map here is the areas that are closer to the coast, close to the Atlantic Ocean, are cooler and will often have a mist in the morning. So Camp 1 is very likely to be misty first thing in the morning, and then very cool before you head inland, and it'll heat up fast. Camp 3 looks like it's close to the ocean, but it's actually not that close, but it will be cooler than, say, Camp 4 and Camp 5. And then Camp 6 and that final run to Swakopmund, it can be very misty. We always hope it's not misty, or not too misty when you cross the finish line, because we like blue skies in the finish line photos. Temperatures, so with that in mind, prepare for temperatures of 40 Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit, just over 100 Fahrenheit, the hottest part of the day. It's highly likely to get up to that temperature. I hope it doesn't get higher, but it could. And if we don't have an east wind, it shouldn't. At night, temperatures are on average 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, and it's 41 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the evening. So it's cool in the evening, but not cold. And it's very strong UV set there. So if there's no cloud cover, you really will feel it. So make sure to not scrimp on your sunscreen and put it on well in advance of when it's needed. Sunrise, just for your information, sunrise is 7:15 a.m. and sunset is 6:30. So you have roughly 11 hours of daylight. As a note here, so the temperatures, if you're looking yourself for forecasts, look up Guanacontes. So Swakopmund and Walvis Bay are on the coast, so the temperatures can be quite different, especially in the morning. Now, I don't know if it's good or bad that I show you this, but this was historical data from Guanacontes from this time last year in this area. So it was highs of sort of 30, late 20s, even early 20s, 30, and the lows were a lot higher in the evening. So let's hope that we have this weather, but be prepared for weather closer to 40 Celsius. And also even the Guanacontes, which is close to Camp 4, is inland and more central, it can still not be as hot there as some of the areas that you will be in, especially when you're in some of the canyons where there's not so much breeze. Okay, I'm moving on to equipment, which I'm not going to talk about too much. I hope that this doesn't look unfamiliar to you. So this is the equipment list. All of the equipment items, all 35 of them, fit onto one page. The full document is 13 pages because we've given you a little bit more information about each of the items. So there are 35 items in total. The key items that you really want to take some time to review and make sure that they are right for you, because they will make a difference to your race, is the shoes and gaiters, which are not mandatory but are highly recommended. The backpack, hydration system, which means the water bottles and the extra bottle to ensure you have 2.5 liters capacity to carry water, electrolytes, and then also food. There's a number of items that I put on a recent update that I sent to you, which are you have to have, but within reason, the weight and the style and design of them doesn't matter. And you might want to get those soonish, because that'll be 50% of your equipment out of the way. So things like red flashing light, the compass, the spoon, even the whistle, like the safety pins, things which are very, very simple to decide on. Like it's not going to ruin your race if your red flashing light is a slight orangey color. But it might ruin your race if the shoes are the wrong type or don't fit you. You have to bring all 35 mandatory items. You can bring anything else that you want with you, but I highly recommend you keep any extras to a minimum. There are a few things you might want to consider. So gaiters, definitely consider, and I highly recommend you bring, but the weight value is very low. Sleeping pad, I mean, it's important that you can get good sleep or get as much good sleep on the race as possible, and the sleeping pad will help with the comfort. But it is a bulky item, and it certainly adds a significant amount of weight, sort of 300 grams or so. Trekking poles is a very interesting topic. Some people love them, some people hate them. I couldn't tell you if I would recommend them, but if you normally use them, bring them. If you don't normally use them, try them before deciding to bring them, and then decide if you want to bring them. Something to eat out of. So if you are decanting your food in your freeze-dried meals into Ziploc bags, remember to think about what you're going to eat them out of. So you're going to prepare them with hot water and then eat them. And then a toothbrush and toothpaste. Briefly on the food, so you must bring 14,000 calories for the start of the race. And then in addition to that, you need to bring something for dinner at Camp 1. So that can be a freeze-dried meal, which is easy, but maybe you want to have a final meal of something fresher, because you'll be taking that on the bus to Camp 1 and you'll be eating it before you actually start the race, so you don't need to carry it. You also don't need to have, so it's based on 14,000 calories, is based on 2,000 calories a day. You don't have to portion it to 2,000 a day. Obviously, the rest day, you might need a little less, but do make sure you have some. And then on stage 6, again, you want something to get you through that last stage, but you don't need to have 2,000 calorie breakfast before you are running 10 kilometers or 6 miles. And you'll finish in town, where you'll then be able to eat as much as you like. I want to touch on something quickly here. So Namibia is not a rich country. The average salary in Namibia is about $10,000 US, I believe, and a lot of people there earn a lot less. So we do some little things there to support the local people. So donations, if you wanted to, are welcome. Things like books, pens, notebooks, games, posters, lightly used clothing. They can all be secondhand. They don't need anything new. Hygiene products such as sanitary towels, reusable water bottles, or even solar powered lamps or flashlights are all the kind of things that they would welcome, and we would donate them to a good cause if you wanted to bring things to Namibia to give to the local people. We partner with a grassroots charity in Namibia. I won't give you the full history here, but basically it's started by one gentleman who grew up in the poorer areas, who commits to providing at least one meal every week to the kids in an area, so relatively nutritious and also something fun and interesting and a proper meal for them to have. Ken, are you on the call? So just unmute yourself.
Yes, I am.
So I'm going to let Ken just say a couple of minutes on this and an option for you to get involved if you want to.
Okay, the sandwich tour basically is a trip which is somewhere between 2.5 and 3 hours. That really starts with the pickup point, probably will be the competitor's hotel, and then it will go into sort of the shanty town, for want of a better term. That's only about 10 or 15 minutes from Swakopmund itself. There's really 3 stops on it. And the first stop really is sort of like a barbecue market area for the local people, and then basically it's a trip to a little church which is used by Clifton and the team, and there we would prepare sandwich lunches, apples, crisps, whatever. And at about maybe 12:30, there might be no children. At maybe 12:45, you look out and maybe there's 50 kids. And at around about 1 o'clock, there could be 200 or 250 children, all there. Some mothers with relatively newborn babies, and the children will come, bring their own little plastic cups, and we will give them juice and a sandwich. And then whenever that's done, and that's packed away, then there are a few people, what you would almost call sort of artisan crafts, and we stop with them on the way back into Swakopmund. It's something which is very cultural. What you'll see in Swakopmund, what you'll see in the desert, isn't maybe what you would call real life to many of these people. And it's a good opportunity to get involved and to certainly help the children.
Excellent, thank you, Ken. So just sharing this now, if you're arriving early or leaving late in Swakopmund and you want to actually go and see this, we're going to arrange a couple of trips, one on Thursday before the race starts, and then one on Sunday after the race finishes. And Ken said it's about 3 hours. We ask for a donation of $10 US equivalent for the transport, and then if you want to make a donation towards the food, you can. So I wanted to share that opportunity with you here. And now we get back to the race. So I'm nearly finished. Here are some frequently asked questions that I get asked or people have been asking me. A lot of them I hope that have been answered here. So are there river crossings? In theory, not, but we will see when the rainy season period is over what the actual terrain is like. It's unlikely to be a river crossing, but it's more likely to be whether it's wetter underfoot. There are no streams or lakes near camps for extra washing of yourself. There is one lake on the long stage that you are welcome to go and refresh in, but yeah, it's halfway through the stage. There are animals, the type of animals that you hopefully will see are things like ostrich, zebra, jackals, hyenas. They're not interested in us. In fact, they're scared of us. So unfortunately, you're less likely to see them, but hopefully you will. There are snakes and scorpions and the like in the area. I think over the 6 times we've been there, I think I've seen 2 snakes and never near the course. They tend to avoid people. But if you do see them, just avoid them. But it's to be aware they are around, but you're unlikely to to encounter them, and if you do, just go around them or avoid them. How hot will it be? I've covered. Bring gaiters, yes. Hot water on the course, only at the overnight checkpoint and the long march, otherwise there's hot water at every camp. Hopefully the cutoff times are clear. Your pack weight, so I hope you should aim not to keep your pack weight under 10 kilos or 22 pounds, and that's before adding the water, which 1.5 litres is an extra 1.5 kilos. The lightest will likely be around 6 kilos. That person will either be hungry or maybe cold, less so in Namib. That is very light. And please try not to go over 15 kilos or 33 pounds, because every gram, every pound that you have on you makes it harder for you. It makes it heavier, which makes the race harder. So your ideal aim is to have your race pack around 10 kilos or 22 pounds, more or less. Can I use water for washing? No, water is for consumption only. Of course, you can use a little bit for washing your teeth or just rinsing out your bowl. And at camp at the medical tents, we will have bowls, and we'll give you water where you can put a little bit of water in the bottom of the bowl to wash your feet so you can keep them clean. But other than that, no, water can't be used for washing. Is there mobile phone reception? So no, the mobile phone reception in the area of the course is very bad. There are some sections where there is some, but it's patchy. Apart from that, you're not allowed to use your mobile phone for social reasons. If we see you, there will be a penalty. It's more because everyone's going there to be out in the desert to have a detox. You are allowed to carry a mobile phone and use it offline for phones or videos or listening to music or the like. Do note that there's no charging at camp, so use it sparingly. Know how much your battery, how long your battery will last, or consider taking an external charger, but that all adds weight. I will give you a emergency number that you can call in case that you need some help on the course. One will be my number and one will be a satellite phone number that I will have. However, do not just expect that you can call it and you will get through, because the reception on the course is very bad. No, you don't have to carry all your rubbish or trash. There are trash cans at checkpoints and camps. Please don't leave it on the course. I think one thing I didn't mention about this earlier, so toilets, portaloos are provided at camp, which you must use. On the course, you go al fresco, wherever you are. We just ask that you go 100 meters or a reasonable distance from the course, so nobody is going to step through your toileting space and traipse it around the camp or the course or the camp, and add the chance of infection. We also ask that you cover up anything solid. You don't need to carry a shovel, but just to be hygienic, and just leave the desert in a pleasanter state. It will decompose. And any toilet paper you use, we will give you toilet paper bags at the start of the race, a bit like bags that you put dog poop into, but you only have to put your toilet paper in there and carry it to the next checkpoint or camp to put in the rubbish bins. Sunrise, sunset are covered. So what is the withdrawal rate? So generally at a RacingThePlanet event, more than 90% of people finish. Between 8 and 15% of people don't. So sometimes it's a little less than 90% of people who finish, and sometimes it's a little bit more, but it's a high finish rate. The main reason people don't finish, so probably number one is blisters. Number two is the heat and managing yourself in the heat. So if it is very hot, slow down, take some time in the shade. If it is extremely hot or hotter than we have anticipated, for example, if there is an east wind, we will likely extend the cutoff times and let you know at the beginning of the stage to allow you to take more breaks and take it easier, making sure you're hydrating and taking your electrolytes and taking your food. If you do decide to withdraw or are withdrawn from the race, you have two options. One is you can come with us from camp to camp and we will transport you. You cannot complete another stage of the race as a competitor, but you can come to the camps, support your fellow racers, help out the volunteers if you want, and experience the Namib Desert that way. or we can make arrangements for you to get back to Swakopmund, and then you can decide what you want to do from there. Can my friend or family member be part of the race? So we have in the volunteer team, which is already full, we have a handful of friends and family. But for anybody else whose friends and family are planning to travel to Namibia, they have a couple of options. They can do the friends and family experience, which is where they can come out to the final camp, spend the night there, eat freeze-dried meals, see you there, not sleep in your tent, but you will see them there, and they can run or walk the final stage, or we can drive them to the finish line to see you cross. Or if they just want to come to the finish line is on the outskirts of Swakopmund, so they can walk there from any hotel or get a short taxi ride, and they're welcome to join the awards banquet, but they will need to buy a ticket for it. The final checklist for you: finalize your travel, your bookings, your transfers, any extra hotels. It is busy in Namibia at the moment, so if you need extra hotels, I would book them soonish. Check the equipment list, see what you have and what you need. I will soon be sending out an email to confirm your address, or if you need the Racing the Planet patches, and then be sending those to you. You'll need to source your own nationality patches. You'll need to secure those to your tops. Fill out the mandatory forms. The deadline is the 1st of March. So there's 5 in total. 4 of them are relatively simple about your medical history, emergency contact, logistics, passport, insurance, etc. One of them is a medical certificate that needs to be signed by a doctor. So that's something that can take a little bit more time to arrange an appointment and get that signed off. Very important, keep to your training plan and stay injury-free. Watch or read all the recommended info as much. The more research you do, the more prepared that you will be for the race, and the more grateful you'll be to have done it. And then get yourself to Swakopmund on Friday, the 26th of April. So that brings me just about to the end. I've gone a little over on my talking, but I now want to open it up to you to ask myself or Thomas or Ken or Mary any questions that you have on what I've said, or anything else about the race. That's good to hear. Does this mean we don't have any questions?
Maybe, Sam, there's one question in the chat. Do we have to wear our country patch on our sleeve?
You do. I know, so recently when we were going to hold the race in Jordan, we said you didn't have to. That was more for people who were worried about running through Jordan without them. We ask, yes, please. If you really don't want to, then please message me separately, and maybe we can allow you to wear the Racing the Planet and the 4 Deserts patch. But the quick answer is yes.
Hi, sorry, it might seem a bit of a stupid question. I received my patches, thank you very much. The Racing the Planet patches, they must go on both sides, right? So we're assuming that's potentially one short sleeve t-shirt, one long sleeve, plus the padded jacket or whatever warm jacket we have, right? But we don't need it on the waterproof, correct?
You do need it on the waterproof.
We
so
do.
There's
okay.
3 mandatory tops. So all tops that you have at the race that are going to be seen as an outside layer, either at camp or on the course, must have the patches. So there's 3 mandatory tops: the running top, the warm top, which can be your jacket or a fleece, and the waterproof jacket. And they do need to have them on. If you're really worried about sewing them onto waterproof jackets, they don't seem to make them less waterproof, but some people are worried. And if you take them off afterwards, they probably will make a difference. You can either silk screen them on, or you can just either sew in the corner, or you can put some strong fabric glue on. Please don't use the glue for your running tops, because they will fall off because they get more wear and tear. But for a waterproof jacket, you're not going to be wearing it as much, and it's more going to be for wind protection. But yes, you do need a Racing the Planet and a nationality patch on both sides of all tops that will be seen as an outside layer during the race.
Copy that, thank you.
Any other questions? Excellent. Well, hopefully I've got you excited for three months' time. I said, looking forward to seeing so many familiar faces and lots of new ones there, and some Grand Slammers as part of this. and to some of those that I was hoping to see the end of last year, but we had to change a plan. But yes, so I hope you've now got your final checklist as well to go through, and I'll be sending more updates in the coming months as we continue to prepare for the race. And other than that, yeah, any questions you can email me. I think you all have my email address, or email to info@racingtheplanet.com. Excellent. Well, thank you all very much, and enjoy the end of your weekend, and we'll keep in touch and look forward to seeing you on the 26th of April.
Sure. Thank you.